Hello and welcome to our Minds and Money 5 at 5 show, which today is sponsored by Niobay Metals, Amex Exploration and Lomiko Metals, and is brought to you in association with the Resource Global Network. For those attending 5 at 5 for the first time, the aim is to maintain engagement between investors and miners through a lively interactive format whilst we wait the return of physical events. A few admin announcements before we start. Please have your video switched on. To ask a question, you've got a couple of options. You can either ask a question in the chat box, which you see at the bottom of the screen, where I posted a few opening welcoming remarks, or you can also wave your hand in the participants button. We can then go and unmute you, and then you can go and ask your question live. For today's show, it's all about Quebec, and to discuss this, we have a great lineup of guests. They are Victor Cantore, President and CEO of Amex Exploration, Paul Gill, CEO of Lomiko Metals, and Claude, Dufresne, President and CEO of Niobay Metals. And as the three mining companies we're going to focus on today all have projects in Quebec, perhaps I can ask my co-host, Kelvin Johnson, if we can perhaps go and get today's polling question up on the screen. And today's polling question is a pretty straightforward question, is what do you think of Quebec as a mining jurisdiction? You've got 5 choices there. I think that I was reading in preparation for this show, and probably turning to Paul Gill first, that I think I see that Quebec is currently ranked number 3 by the Fraser Institute as a mining jurisdiction. What is it that attracts you to Quebec?
Well, I think the location of Quebec as in that part of the world is very, very important. You have such great access to the East Coast of the US, to the central United States, and to Europe. I think that's a beauty of the location, and beyond other things, I'm sure we'll certainly have I think a good conversation about that later on as well in my presentation.
Mm-hmm. And would your sentiments be similar, Claude?
Well, I will add to this. I must say first, we're going where the Mother Nature dropped the deposit, right? So, but fortunately, Quebec is hosting a list of minerals that are in great needs, and obviously that the demand for those metals are going to grow significantly in the near future. But on top of this, Andrew, I think we're very lucky to have Quebec-based project, because not only we have access to the resource, but also we have access to a lot of funding from what we call here the Quebec Inc., which is government supported funds, and also the government is really focusing on helping the industry to develop the electrification of vehicle. So anything that has to do with batteries and what's surrounding EV cars, you're definitely going to have a huge support from the local government. So
and just bringing in sort of like Victor, I'm just kind of curious for your answer as well, but also I guess within that, I'm just curious that you've got many years experience in the mining industry. You must have worked in other mining jurisdictions as well. Mm-hmm. How does Quebec stack up to other mining jurisdictions that you've worked in?
Yeah, it stacks up really well, because one of the things that Quebec has, it definitely has lots of respect towards the First Nations. But there's, they do work in collaboration with each other. Yes, when you want to bring a project into production, you'll have to sign an impact benefit agreement. But prior to that, it's you can explore as long as you follow guidelines. There's nobody's going to block you from exploring, as long as you follow all the guidelines with the environment and protecting the First Nations culture. And Quebec is really underexplored. According, there's a lot of land in Quebec that has not been explored, and it's really got a big geologic attractiveness to it.
And just expanding on the last point, if you had to sort of explain what is Quebec's approach to issues such as First Nations, can you sort of explain as to like what its approach is and how it may differ to other jurisdictions?
Sure. So at the one of the for example, when you need to get a permit, a drilling permit. So you send out your permit. You do it with the local First Nations. They have 30 days to respond. If for whatever reason they don't respond, then the government will, the MERN, the Ministry of Natural Resources gets involved, and they try to figure it out. And they usually do that within 15 days after that. So this is something that if there is some kind of dispute, it gets solved within 45 days of you issuing your first demand for a permit. So the process is quite it's quite quick, and what it does, it encourages exploration, because the big money for the First Nations is going to be if projects go into production. So you have to encourage exploration, and then when it comes to advancing the project, that's when you'll have to sign a more detailed impact benefit agreement in order to get your certificate of authorization. Otherwise, you will not get a certificate of authorization if you haven't signed an impact benefit agreement, which I think is very conducive for both the mining and also for the First Nations, because everybody gets respected there.
And maybe to add, Andrew, on this, I must say, like, obviously we own a project in Quebec. We also one in Ontario, and we're basically in the middle of this. And what we realize is obviously the Quebec First Nation are much more structured towards exploration compared to other provinces. So that makes obviously life much easier for exploration in the province here compared to other provinces in the country.
Absolutely.
And I think this is going to be on the point that Claude made earlier, and I'm just thinking probably kind of a question for you, Paul, in terms of how has the Quebec's approach to the electric vehicle revolution and then EV funding, how has that helped you and Lomiko Metals? And you also have another company called Lomiko Technologies, if I recall.
Yeah, I think it's helped us a lot. We certainly got on the radar in a big way. We had a mention in the critical metals plan that was put out by Quebec, which was very helpful to us. So we've identified ourselves as a group that wants to work in that particular area, and I think the support has been fabulous. We've been contacted by the institutions and the Quebec government. So they're ready, willing, and able to help in certain ways. And that goes a long way to a company like ours who's trying to raise awareness of what we're doing and what we can get done in Quebec.
Okay, well, thank you very, very much for that. I think if I can ask my colleague Kelvin just to close down the poll and bring the polling result up on the screen. And hopefully up on your screen, you're seeing an overwhelming win for Quebec being rated excellent with 57% as a mining jurisdiction. And so I think without further ado, let's move on to our first mining update of the show. So if we just take down the polling results, I ask Victor Cantore if you'd like to share your slides. Just whilst Victor's getting prepared, just a bit of a brief background. Victor is a seasoned capital markets professional, specialising in the resource and high-tech sector. He's more than 20 years of advisory leadership experience, begun his career in 1992 as an investment advisor, and then moving on to management roles at both public and private companies. And now Victor works for Amex Exploration, and Victor's got his slides up. So Victor, the floor is yours.
Great. I'll start from the... There we go. So what our project is, it's a gold project. It's quite advanced. We're running one of the largest drilling programs actually in Canada. We're in the middle of a 300,000 meter drill program. The mineralization has actually been quite extensive. I mean, we've hit some really high grade numbers, and it's starting to be both a mix of high grade and also some open pittable lower grade. So I'm going to go through these slides quickly. This is all the qualified person third party data. Our lawyers asked us even to run it through. So when you look at our shareholder base, we have Eric Sprout that comes in at 15%, Commodity Capital 8%, Management 13%, and Quebec institutions and other institutions with the balance at 29%. We currently have about 87 million shares outstanding. The numbers are just a little bit higher than what you're seeing over here. And we are still sitting with about $25 million in cash. And the split is about half and half with flow through dollars and hard dollars. And by December 31st, we're still going to have about $20 million. The reason I have this slide up here is because I want to show that where our project is, there's highways and roads that lead right to the project. You have all the infrastructure you need there. You have electricity, you have water, you have cell phone service. You can leave from Montreal or Toronto, and you'll arrive at our project within about 7 hours or so. Where we're located right in the middle of the Abitibi Greenstone Belt. When you look at all the mines around there, you've got the Detour Lake, Kirkland Lake project up on top. You have the Holt Holloway. You have the Westwood. So basically, you are in elephant country. And when you look at this deformation zone, the Shakopee deformation zone, it actually has been underexplored. There's been one mine there, the Normanton mine, and and you're looking at the Perron property. It's really a gold asset that we're looking at right now. And these slides are going to be 3 slides, one after another, just to show the evolution. It shows that this was done on Leapfrog. So this was in 2019. If you look 2020 and now in 2021, you could see the extensive work that we've done on it. It's quite fantastic how much gold we've been finding. We're looking at doing a 43-101. Launching a 43-101 resource calculation sometime at the end of the year after we've done our 300,000 meters. So sometime in first quarter, first half of 2022, we should have a resource calculation. And really, when you look at the blue sky here, so when you're looking at this. The slide here, where you see the white, where it says we see EGZ, CPZ, GCZ, and GGZ. So that's the Eastern Gold Zone. The Central Polymetallic Zone, GCZ is the Grey Cat Zone, and then you have the Gratien Gold Zone. So these are the zones that we've worked at. Now, when you calculate this fault line here, you're looking around about 7 kilometers on that one. The one on top is another 7 or 8 kilometers, and there's one that goes right through the middle. I mean, that's well over 20 kilometers of faults that we're exploring, and that's where the blue sky comes here. We've barely explored about 3 to 3.5 kilometers of this belt over here. We own the property. We own the property 100%. 300,000 meter drill program, and some of the results we've been getting have been really good. And the Eastern Gold Zone, it's an orogenic gold shoot. We've found this all the way down to 1.3 kilometers. And still getting high grade, and it's quite linear. It's tilting at a 70%. It's at a 70-degree angle, and it's quite linear, and it's been quite. The results have been quite consistent from surface all the way down to 1.3 kilometers. So that's it. We're looking forward to a resource calculation, and we've been doing a lot of drilling, and we're going to be putting up more results that are going to be coming up soon. So. That's pretty much a condensed version.
Okay, no, it's kind of excellent, and I'd invite the audience to go and post any questions that they have for Victor. And we've got an opening question, which is the mineralization there associated with these thrust faults?
Yeah, most of it is. It's there is those faults, but you also have the secondary faults. When you look at the GCZ, there is another. It's not just the thrust faults. You also have the secondary faults. That's where you're getting a lot of mineralization also. So we're really going to be starting doing a lot of exploration drilling, but we wanted to start doing definition drilling. And some of the definition drilling results have been coming out, and they've been quite fantastic.
Okay, do you want to elaborate a bit on those drilling results as to what your latest drilling results are and what your future drilling result plans are?
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at our last results, we were getting like 72 grams over 4 meters. We've had some, and then beside, so you've got in the Eastern Gold Zone, you've got 2 zones. You've got the high grade zone, so that's been consistent. Those are the kind of grades we've been getting up and up and down. Now, right beside it, we're about 50 meters beside it, you have what you call the Denise zone, and we've hit some results of 180 meters of well over 1 gram per ton. So now, when you're looking at this as an open, when you look at this in an open pit for the first 200 to 300 meters, this is actually going to be a high-grade open pit when you're blending those two results together. The definition drilling we've been doing lately, you're looking at anywhere between 106. The ones we've been doing lately are around 160 to 190 meters vertical depth. So that's all open pittable. When you take those kind of grades of getting 70 grams over 4 or 5 meters, and you put that together with 180 meters of a little over 1 gram, you're actually starting to get high grade mineralization there.
What's the infrastructure like at the properties that you're exploring?
The infrastructure is great. You're in an old mining town. The mining town is called Normatal. You have a town 15 to 20 minutes away, Lassar. So you are. I mean, there was a mine that operated there for 50 years, from the late 1920s all the way to the 70s. So the town is about 700 to 800 workers, but a lot of the people do live in Lassar, which is a town of 10,000 people. You have electricity, you have water, you have cell phone service. Like, it's everything you need is right there. You have roads and highways that lead right to the project. Like 7 hours from Montreal, you'll be on the doorstep. You'll be right at our core shack, which is our core shack. From where we drill, you're talking about 15-20 minutes, depending where the drill site is.
And another question sent in by the audience: what is it about your location that others have ignored? You seem to be surrounded by other mines. Why did they ignore your area in the past?
In the past, so when you look at if you look at the Abitibi Greenstone Belt, when you look at start from the Destour Porcupine, which is on the south, and you go all the way to the Sunday Lake deformation. So we're sitting right in the middle, and it's concave. So what you do have, what they've ignored, is that you don't have those prospectors that are going around and seeing rusted quartz, and they're banging out rocks, and they're finding gold mineralization. It's really your exploration tools is geophysical and then drilling. So it becomes very expensive. So that's where when we walked into this project. So, I mean, this project has been going on for a long time. Our team walked in late 2016. We financed the company. We launched a massive geophysical program, and then we started doing some drilling until we had some success, and now we're launching a massive drilling program. It's really been ignored, underexplored because of overburden in the area. I mean, there's no, when you look at the Abitibi Greenstone Belt, there's no reason why there shouldn't be mineralization on the Shakobee Greenstone Belt compared to the other deformation zones that are there.
Do you have a timeline for the parent property to go into production?
No, not yet. Our first step is going to be a resource calculation. We're trying to bring in as a robust resource calculation as we can. There's 3 analysts now that are covering us, and it's anywhere from they're putting it anywhere from 1.5 million to 4 million ounces. We're going to try to hopefully beat our best analysts to try to come in north of 4 million. That's going to be our goal, to try to beat them. And after that, try to do an economic study after that. That's really going to be the goal, is a resource calculation and economic study immediately after that.
Sure. And probably just like a wrap-up question, I think it would have been on your second slide. I think you briefly showed your management team. Can you just explain a little bit about your management team's experience?
Yes, absolutely. So our chairman, executive chairman, this is his 3rd mine that he finds. That's what when I got involved, that's what I told him. I said, I like getting involved with people who find mines, because they usually have a good habit of finding more and more mines. The one that he found, one of the biggest ones that he found, was the Shahuindo mine. It's in Peru. It's got well in excess of 3 million ounces proven right now, and it's continuing to produce, and they continue finding more and more resource. So Jacques Trottier is really the person behind it. That was there right from the beginning. Then we brought in Kelly Malcolm. He was working at Detour. He was one of the persons that was also responsible for the 58 North, the 58N discovery over at Detour. So for us, the fact that he knew the area, knew the rocks in the Abitibi Greenstone Belt, we brought him over, and I think we have a really good mix between. That's where the management team, I find, gets really nice, where you have a good technical team, to make the discoveries, and you have a good financial team to finance the project. Because at the end of the day, you need to finance these drilling campaigns in order to find the resource.
Definitely.
So we've been very fortunate with that.
Definitely. Well, I think it's sort of like great you've got an executive chairman that's got a track record of finding 3 mines. I've always got a great belief in investing in lucky people, because the harder the harder people try in life, the luckier they get. So it certainly seems you've got a strong management team, an absolutely fantastic set of properties there, and I'm sure you're all set for success. So I think without further ado, we'll move on from Amex Exploration to our next presenter. So I'll just ask Paul just to go and get his slides up on the screen. Just whilst Paul's just doing a slide share, a brief introduction. Paul Gill is involved in the strategy, planning and implementation of creating new businesses and restructuring organizations. He's currently the CEO of Lomiko Metals, CEO of Lomiko Technologies, Director of Graphene ESD and Altair Ventures. Paul, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Andrew, and welcome everyone. Lomiko Metals trades under the symbol LMR in Canada and LMRMF in the United States. We're here to really talk about what we feel is a huge 10-year trend in the metals and mining industry, and that's the electric vehicle revolution. We can only call it that because we can see what's happened in the past in different technological changes. If we look at computers or the internet or the social media or even smartphones, they've all been multi-year trends. And I think this is one that's starting right now, which is propelled by Tesla, and that has caused a continuation of demand and the real awakening of people that want to drive electric vehicles, and the materials that are needed are going to have to be found here in North America. So with no further ado, I want to move my slide forward, first of all. How do I do that?
Should hopefully just to be the down button.
There we go.
Got it.
Yeah, sorry, I had the wrong button. Okay, so what about Lomiko? What's the big deal with Lomiko? Well, first of all, we have recently acquired the 70% interest in the Bourrier lithium project near Nemaska in Quebec. This is a very prospective project that we've optioned from Critical Elements, who's also a Quebec-based company. Our primary project, though, is the La Lutte graphite project, which is now going to report a preliminary economic assessment in the next month or two. And so we're also going to include in that upgraded resource numbers. So we should have that fairly soon as well. So we've selected Ausenco to do the preliminary economic assessment, international firm, and happily the same firm that did a report for the previous project I was on, the Norrismont Constancia project in Peru, which is a copper project that's now run by Hudbay Minerals. We felt that was a very successful endeavor, and we think we can also have a successful endeavor here. We've also hired Bridge Consultants in order to do community and stakeholder relations. That's very, very important. We're also looking forward to engaging with community and with funders as we explain what the project's all about. We have investor relations on, and we've also signed an MOU with a group called Kenmar Securities in the United States to fund the project post PEA. So we're in pretty good shape right now, and we're moving forward quite quickly with all the development. So a quick review of what's happening with the two projects. On the one side, you'll see the La Lutte graphite project with the 2 identified anomalies, which are now going to be converted into pit outlines, and then that will be part of the PEA report. However, one thing to note is that there's 12 actual geophysical anomalies that have been identified. We've only drilled 2 of them, so there's much more if we need to explore there. But however, with the kinds of numbers that we're getting on those 2 projects, we have a 2016 report that people can review as well. It was a very significant find, and we're just really upgrading the economic argument for the project in order to put out the PEA. In regards to the Boreal lithium project, we're part of a large group of explorers that are in this particular area called what I call the Lithium Triangle North, or Canada's Lithium Triangle, that is associated with Critical Elements primarily, who we've optioned the project from. Their Rose Tantalum project is Rose Lithium Tantalum project is in green. Our Boreal project is in the gold area, and it's a large VMS system that we hope to explore this summer. We've currently received geophysical information on the project and are identifying the targets for the summer exploration campaign. So as you can tell, we're really on the verge of some very good information that will put some meat on the bones for investors. And we've had a successful few years or few months actually in raising funds. Right now, we're sitting with 237 million shares out. The warrants outstanding are about 76 million, and what we'll see with a full cash dilution is about 9 million more coming in if we get all of those warrants exercised, currently with 3.5 million in the till. I'm very interested in this particular project simply because we know, as I said before, the location is key. And then secondarily, we do have the interest, and hopefully will get reviewed by the Quebec government for support, which will then propel additional support from the investing public. So thanks very much, Andrew. Appreciate your time.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. We've already got a question in from the audience. Have you had any discussion about potential buyers of your graphite offtake?
Not at this time, because we have to report our preliminary economic assessment first. That we need to have an economic argument first. But certainly we know that there are people who have contacted us about that, but we haven't engaged in any negotiations as yet.
Mm-hmm. Listening to your presentation, and then obviously we have a lot of battery metals miners come to Mines and Money and say, invest in us to capitalize on the EV market revolution. It's kind of like Lomiko Metals, one of your key unique selling points. Is it that combination of being a graphite producer but also having a lithium project? That to me seems to be quite unique amongst a lot of battery metal companies that I talk to.
Yeah, my experience in the field of mining and in mining in general is that once you get into development, there's not a large amount of news flow that's exciting and all of that. So what you need to have is you have your base product or base project that will be going into development, and at the same time you want to have news flow on exploration and added value. So certainly with the project, La Lutte project, we'll have further drilling as we go into pre-feasibility. But there won't be any discovery holes drilled, I don't think, in La Lutte. Now we're really just defining more and more, looking at geochemical drilling and infill drilling. Whereas with Boreal, it's exciting. I'm an explorer. That's what we're here for. We're here to make discoveries. And we love to go into new areas and take a prospective project on. And this is a 25-kilometer long VMS system, which to me is very exciting, and we're really looking forward to getting on.
Yeah. Another question in from the audience: as a company who is involved in the green metal space going forward, how much does things like being as clean as you can with your metallurgy and avoiding arsenic and extraction affect your investable case?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the first thing we looked at when we optioned the project was what are the geochemical background and footprint going to be for the project. And so in testing, one of the things you look for is sulfur and arsenic. And at the present time, we haven't seen any in large amounts that can't be handled. And secondly, when you look at the carbon footprint as well, you want to have a very concise and tight project that doesn't allow for large traverses of trucks or other types of large machinery that's required to process and move the material around, because that's where your big cost is. So you want to have a project that you can look at the particular location, extract, process, and then store your tailings and your waste material very close by, and have a very easy road to go to get down to your port or to your customer. And we happen to only be about an hour and a half away from Montreal, so it's a very good location. We in fact had a new project or new company called Lion Energy that just situated in Saint Jerome recently, that's building lithium ion battery buses for schools. So it's, here is a new customer potentially that's located right there. Also, just north of us is the Imerys carbon and graphite mine, which has been operating for 20 years. And they're close to closure of that particular mine. So we may be able to use some of the people that come from that particular area in our development.
And just one final, just quick question. When I was introducing at the start, I mentioned Lomiko Technologies. Can you tell us a little bit about your work under Lomiko Technologies and graphene, and how that links in with Lomiko Metals?
Yeah, we're really interested in the end products that can be created with graphite, and graphene is a very exciting one. 30,000 patents that have been filed on graphene. There's anything from inputs into construction materials such as cement, to rubber, to other types of water filtration applications. So we created a Lomiko Technologies as a group to explore some of those particular areas, and we found a couple different very good projects. And what we've done is actually sold Lomiko Technologies to Prometheus Technologies, which is still a company we own 20% of, but the whole project will be going public in the Dutch Caribbean Exchange, which is an interesting new situation for us. That will allow funding to go directly into the technology side, although Lomiko will retain a piece of the pie, so to speak. But we really want to be focused on the mineral and tech minerals rather than the technology. So we'll have a new management team on the technology side that'll take over from us on that.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very, very much for that. Again, another absolutely fascinating project. We've run out of time for questions for you, Paul, but you'll see in the chat box there's a couple of unanswered questions, one from Dan Kerwin and another one from Joe Austin. So if I can just leave you to perhaps like answer those questions in sort of writing in the sort of like chat box whilst we move on to our next presentation. And if we can just do a quick sort of switch over of slides. So if you can take down your slides, Paul, and then we can go and have the slides.
We'll do it, Andrew.
Sorry. Hey, thank you very much for that, Paul. And then, as Paul's just taking down his slides, I'm just going to ask Claude to bring his slides to the screen and say, as I mentioned to you, Paul, you'll see a few questions in the chat box for you. But just while Claude's bringing his slides up to the screen, we're moving on to a miner that's exploring for both niobium and tantalum. Niobay Metals is a Canadian mineral exploration company that is publicly traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange. It is developing the James Bay niobium project, which is a world-class deposit located in the James Bay region. And to go and tell us a little bit more, I'm going to hand the floor over to Claude.
Thanks, Andrew. So welcome, everyone. So two things here, guys, I would like to, on our first presentation. So you see niobium, and we disclaim ourselves as being the new kids on the block, and some of you might wonder why. So I'm going to go briefly, since we're talking about Quebec, I'm going to go quickly through our flagship project, which is the James Bay Niobium project. That project is located in Ontario, so I'm going to go rather quickly, but still, it is our flagship project, sorry. So in a nutshell, what I would like to bring to your attention is we recently published a preliminary economic assessment on the asset, whereas we look at 3 mining scenarios. Niobium is a very unique commodity. I'll touch base quickly on this later on, but we didn't want to exceed world production. We didn't want to exceed more than 5% of the world market consumption for obviously not going into detail. So we kind of cap our production to 5%. And you could see the PEA results of our various scenarios. So we're sitting on a deposit that is worth more than $1 billion after tax, with some very high IRR of roughly about 28%. And again, this is strictly based on no more than 5% of the world market. So, and just to give you a sense of the potential of that asset in Ontario, you could see our market share here is going to peak around less than 5%. After that, we're going down. So obviously, there's huge amount of upside that could come as we're going to grow capacity of that asset. But today we're here to talk about our Quebec project, our Crevier project, which is an niobium tantalum asset. We're situated about 120 kilometers west of the Niobay mine, which is a niobium producer mine. And the reason why we're also looking at Crevier today, Crevier is a niobium tantalum project, and because of the content of tantalum, we need to separate both the niobium and the tantalum to be able to have sellable product. And the form of niobium of Crevier is in the form of niobium oxide. And the niobium oxide is the precursor material for the production of niobium batteries. So most of you haven't heard niobium batteries. That probably doesn't sound familiar to you. And I'll explain exactly the potential of that market. But the point I want to raise here is we're committed into developing niobium asset. We're sitting on $1 billion asset in Ontario, and we're actually owning a Crevier asset, which could become the next supplier of niobium battery grade here in Quebec. So Crevier, we've published a PEA early in 2011. There was an update scoping study, which is not 42-101 on the asset, but to give you a sense of the NPV, it is certainly not as high as the James Bay project, but it's still very interesting with over $300 million NPV, a capex of about $250 million, and IRR of 24%. So it is smaller, but it's certainly much more interesting because of the potential with niobium batteries. But before getting too much detail about the niobium battery potential, what you need to know right now is niobium, 90% of the niobium in the world is consumed by the steel industry as a strengthening alloy in the manufacturing of high value steel, or what we call it is high strength alloy or steel, or advanced high strength steel. So basically what niobium do to steel, it makes steel stronger, so that enable you to produce less steel to have the same strength required. So that aspect in the steel industry contribute to a significant saving of the reduction of CO2 on the planet. 1 ton of steel usually generate anywhere between 1.9 to 2 ton of CO2. So it is significant. And as of last year, the balance of the niobium, so the 10% balance, goes pretty much in what we call the super alloy market, which is end up in jet turbines for aerospace industries, also in the MRI, like as a superconductor. So steel right now is consuming about 90%. The super alloy part of it is consuming about 10%. But this is about to change because there's been a lot of R&D works by major companies. And recently, there's Toshiba who are starting to develop, and they're about to commercialize what they call their TNO batteries, is an niobium titanium oxide batteries. And what that battery does, it does things that other batteries don't do. You could fast charge your battery. And when we're talking about fast charging, you could charge your battery in about 6 minutes. And on top of that, it improved the safety of the batteries. Unfortunately, I don't have time to get into much detail here. But if you can fast charge in 6 minutes, you could discharge very fast. So you can have very high performance. So there are certain applications that will love to have those type of battery. But the second most important aspect of those batteries is the circle life. So a battery could be charged and discharged over 25,000 times. So the only drawback at this point that we see on the niobium batteries is the cost. So the cost is about twice, 50% to 100% more expensive than regular graphite type of batteries. The niobium, most of the niobium in batteries will be to replace graphite on the anode side. You can find some niobium on the cathode side, but most of it is on the anode side. So what are the applications for those niobium batteries? I have a few examples here. First, and the largest potential market is the hybrid vehicle, which could represent roughly more than 50% of the demand for those type of batteries. And why is that? We all know that when you ride with a hybrid vehicle, when you brake or decelerate, there is a generator in the wheel system that bring back power to the battery. But because fast charging, you could really increase the quantity of energy that is stored during that braking time. So that gives you more power in the batteries. So right now, there are a lot of companies that are currently testing those technology with hybrid vehicle, and we see a surge of demand for those type of batteries. Other examples, you can have those electric buses that are running from point A to point B. Keep in mind, 5-minute charge, so you can start the routes fully charged, goes through his regular route. At the end of the route, you get another boost, another 5-minute charge, and the bus is fully charged and go back to point A. Storage, there's a lot of potential for storage. Power tools is going to be a big one for those type of batteries. So it is evolving very quickly. The current market is very small, but potentially is going to grow. And what we see here is the potential demand for niobium will double within the next 10 years.
Just
and now we definitely want to become a player in that space.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew.
No problem, George, because actually just on the demand side, there's a couple of questions sent in by the audience, which I just wanted to interject at this stage, because I think it'd be quite good just to address them. There was one question, and they're both kind of related questions. One was, if the Namibian market grows, how do you maintain 5%? And then a related question was, in the PEA, you've limited production to 5% world market share. Since the market grows to 6% per year, James' market share surely will be decreasing year after year. Yeah. How have you simulated what would be the net present value if you maintain a 5% share over the year?
Okay, so let's assume we take our James Bay niobium project. Okay, like I said, we've capped our production to around 6,000 tons a year in our PE model, and this is based on the 6% growth in terms of natural niobium consumption by the steel industry. But if those battery demand for niobium batteries start to grow, obviously that's going to leave a lot of room to further grow the capacity here of our James Bay assets. So I can easily see those numbers to increase 50% by adding up capacity. The thing is, the deposit has been drilled only down to 300 meters, and we know it is continuing at depth, and we know there's an area north of the deposit that has not been drilled that could easily increase resources by 15 to 20%. We've done simulation, Andrew, whereas we maintain, let's see, a 5% market share as the market grow. which obviously that's not 42101 compliance, but on the open pit, we're closer to $1.7 billion after tax and PV. And on the underground scenario, we're closer to $1 billion NPV. So, and this is just based on maintaining a 5% world market share. So imagine if that market share double, obviously though our asset could become very extremely valuable. And obviously we need to get that into production as soon as possible.
Sure. There's also another question sent in by the audience as well. Who will be processing your Namibian?
We're going to process ourselves. Actually, we're right now, like I've been in the Namibian space for more than 20 years now. So I know the market very well. I know the metallurgy very well. In terms of the battery technology, we're actually investing a lot of time. We have a team internal and some people that are helping us that are actually deeply involved, and we're looking at numbers of initiatives whereas we can start creating value at not only producing the precursor material, which is the niobium oxide, but we're looking at if it makes sense to get a little bit more vertically integrated into producing anode material. So that's something we're internally currently working at. And I must say it's really exciting. So we're extremely excited about the potential of those technologies.
Yeah, we mentioned a little bit about as to who would use Namibian for battery metals technologies, and I think there was two other companies on your website, Toshiba and QuantumScape. Can you just elaborate on that?
Well, there is just a handful of companies that are currently developing those niobium technologies. Toshiba is the leading one or the most renowned company. They have developed their own technology called the NTO batteries. There's a lot of information on Toshiba websites, and we know they've sent a lot of prototypes to a numbers of end user like Amazon. Amazon are using some of Toshiba's batteries in their robots in the warehouses. So you can just imagine there's probably 100, if not 1,000 of robots that are moving back and forth all the time, 24 hours already in those warehouses. So currently those robots needs an hour and a half to get charged, if not more, while they could be charged in 5 minutes. So you can imagine the impact. The potential saving on total cost of owning those technology. There's also two spin-offs from Cambridge University are currently developing the same technology. Company called Acheon Technology, and there's another one called Neobolt. There's a company in the US called Battery Streak that also have their own technology using niobium oxide. And we understand that William Technology are looking at putting niobium batteries for the future of Formula E. So maybe the third generation Formula E, you could, instead of having I wouldn't say boring race, but you can have some, instead of coming and change the tires, you can come and charge your batteries and then you can go off again. So there's a lot of excitement around this about those technologies.
Okay. There's another question that's been sent in by the audience as well. Who are your major partners and shareholders, and how much skin in the game do the management team have?
Management, we're about 7% ownership. Our largest shareholder is the Osisko Group. Osisko Development owns around 14% of the company. There's another Osisko company who owns roughly 9.9%. We also have the Caisse de Dépôt, which is a Quebec institution here, one of the largest, second largest pension fund in the country. The Caisse own 9.9%. So we're financially, we have very strong shareholder who can help with the development of our projects. And in terms of our current liquidity. We're sitting around $12 million in the bank right now.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you very much. That was a really great presentation, and again, another very fantastic and really unique project. There were a few questions. There were a few comments in the chat box, and they were mainly around the use of graphite in battery metals. I know that Paul Gill from Lomiko, I think you answered some of them, but do you have any comments you'd like to make about the use of graphite in battery metals?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. The use of graphite is very specific to the anode material of the lithium-ion battery. The cathode is made of nickel with lithium salts involved, and then the anode itself is primarily graphite, and it's a special type of spherical graphite, which is produced by micronization of the graphite, and then creating spheres through rolling it and then coating it in order to get a very consistent electrical charge throughout the entire anode. So very, very big consumption is going to happen if there's more electric vehicles on the road.
And I think that kind of I just see we're coming up to the sort of 50-minute mark. I'm just going to then sort of come back to Victor from Amex Exploration, I guess, for my closing question. We've obviously had three very sort of interesting, very different presentations from three very different mining companies today, but all have one thing in common, which is Quebec. There are a number of miners and a number of investors who are listening in today's show who may not be currently investing or mining in Quebec, but may be considering it. If there was one takeaway from today's show that they should be taking away about Quebec, what would that be? What would you say to them?
It's a safe jurisdiction. You have government backing. Good relations with the First Nations, and I think we're well endowed with minerals here in Quebec. The geological context here is very good and very ripe for more and more discoveries, and also the companies that have discovered already. There is good government backing in order to bring these projects to production.
Okay, well. Thank you very, very much for that. And I think on that positive note, that brings the end to today's Quebec theme 5 at 5. So many thanks to our guests. Many thanks to our sponsors who are Amex Exploration, Lomiko Metals, Niobay Metals, as well as the Resource Global Network. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great weekend. See you next week. Until then, stay safe. Thank you very much.
See you guys.
Thank you, everyone.